2014. This is Diana Kupfer. I'm here with Alex Deschamps-Sonsino, a keynote speaker this year at JAX. She's an interaction and product designer and an entrepreneur and speaker based in London. Alex, do you remember the first time you heard the term or the concept Internet of Things?
I don't actually, because it used to be called quite a number of different things. I think that when I started getting interested in this field, some people were calling blogjects because they were objects that would blog. And ubiquitous computing was a term that sort of ping-ponged around, and I think probably around 2007, 2008, people started transitioning to Internet of Things. But Kevin Ashton, who actually coined the term, had mentioned it years and years before, but it didn't really truly emerge as a term that people looked at until much later.
Mm-hmm. You're founder of the Goodnight Lamp, which is a family of internet-connected lamps. Could you briefly explain the idea behind it?
Sure. It's really about connecting global families. And so you have a big lamp and little lamps. You give the little lamps away to anyone around the world. And when you turn the big lamp on, the little ones turn on. So it's a very simple way of sharing your availability and your presence with a loved one who might be in a different time zone. So a very simple way of saying, I'm available right now. So like the Facebook status, but taken out into the real world. Mm-hmm. And so we've been working on this since March 2012. After I came up with the idea in 2005. So it's very much almost 10 years in the making now.
How did you come up with the idea?
It was an idea that I came up with during a master's degree. I did a master's degree in interaction design in northern Italy, where the Arduino was being developed.
And so,
yes, Massimo Banzi was one of my professors and then became my co-founder on my first business. Mm-hmm. And we were always, thinking about this idea that I'd had and how to bring it to life. And at the time in 2005, hardware was still reasonably expensive. The software side of things for the IoT was not developed at all. And so in 2012, it felt like a better time to start putting some efforts and some money into it, really.
Mm-hmm. And what stage is it in right now?
So we're pre-industrializing the product now and hoping to ship our first batch this year.
Nice. Now about the keynote that you just held, mm-hmm. You said something like software isn't the hardest part in product development and mm-hmm. The development of things. Can you reiterate what you mean by that?
So I really, JAX is a software conference, and the attendees are very software focused in their view of the IoT. And I think that what makes the IoT so special is this mix between software, hardware, and design. And so out of those three things, only one of them is software. And so the problem that someone encounters when trying to make a successful Internet of Things product are really related to a lot of components, some of which are software, but actually most of which have to do with positioning the product in the market, sales, growing a company around it, finding the right expertise, and making sure that they actually have something that matches a market. And so the software side almost comes secondary to all those concerns, really.
Mm. And some of those things you have to consider are really costly, you said.
They're very cost heavy, and they also take a lot of time. So pre-industrializing a product is extremely expensive. It takes an awful lot of time to find the right partners, to find manufacturers that are willing to play and to engage with quite small companies, which is quite new. People haven't been doing manufacturing at such a small scale in quite some time. About 10 years ago, you were either a large corporate, in Germany, someone like Bosch, for example, doing manufacturing, or you were a craftsman or a product designer that wanted to do one or two of something. And we're now developing an ecology of startups who are interested in doing 100 to 5,000 of something, which is very small for large manufacturing partners and quite big for people who've only been interested in the craft side of making. And so it's a new market, really, and a new market and new opportunities, hopefully, for the manufacturing sector.
Okay. What are the biggest challenges for the IoT for the next 5 years or so?
I think some of the biggest challenges is to break down barriers within industries. So for people in the traditional manufacturing industries to realize that they need this new side of their business, which might be related to software, data, big data. For people who are in software to understand that it's inherently always going to be tied to a piece of hardware, a product that someone wants to buy and own. And also for customers to be comfortable buying these new products because they might cost a lot more than things they've been used to buying. So a smart washing machine or an Internet of Things connected smart washing machine might cost significantly more than a normal washing machine. And if the value isn't explained to them very clearly, then they're going to reject it as being faddish or really, not interesting. And the best example of this is the internet-connected fridge, of course, which is an idea that keeps constantly emerging from large white goods manufacturers who feel like there's got to be something there, but maybe there isn't because the consumers haven't picked it up at all, which means that from a behavioral and from a user perspective, there's no need to be fulfilled by a smart fridge. But because manufacturers and industry have a lot of buying power and also a lot of R&D power, they keep sort of pushing along those ideas. And I think it's more interesting to think of what a small group of people, a small startup might come up with that could be a smart magnet that allows you to reorder something when you push a button. It just happens to live on the fridge, but it's completely disconnected to the fridge in some way. So that's where the real opportunity is, I think.
Okay. So in the end, it's about creating a synthesis between the very innovative startup culture on the one hand and the traditional business.
Absolutely. And for both of those communities to find places to speak to one another, such as JAX, to really engage in conversations and to start collaborating with each other. So I was pushing very much for the audience to buy an Arduino and start building products, because even though they've heard of it, there's a very big difference between hearing about a piece of technology and actually using it. And they're very comfortable in software, but they also need to understand about the hardware side of things.
I must admit, I was one of those who raised their hands when you asked if they knew Arduino, and then I took it down when
exactly.
People own one. Final question, what advice would you give to a startup that's starting their own business in this field, the Internet of Things?
I think you have to be very patient. There is a lot of education that still needs to be done, and people will slowly change their minds as more and more innovation happens, but you will have to bide your time and be very patient about finding the right partners. I would say don't jump on the first partner that comes along. Really find someone who is there to support you in the long term, whether it's someone who helps you design the product or someone who helps you build the software for it or the cloud service for it. But be patient about what you can achieve in small periods of time. The web community and online startups have a habit of being able to turn around something that's very finalized, even though it's notionally in beta, that's very close to a final product very quickly, and that's not the case in hardware. These things take many, many months, if not years.
You said something very smart in your keynote, namely that people should test the appetite for a product on Kickstarter first and then quit their job.
Yes, absolutely. I think crowdfunding has become a really intelligent way of marketing a product. It's not a good way to raise money, and it's not necessarily the place to really form a business, but it's a space where you can test an idea. And if people are interested in potentially getting involved in that space, that's the very easy entry, really. All you need is a good idea, a good prototype, and a video. and you're good to go.
Is there any particular platform you would recommend for
I think
types of products?
they all cater to slightly different demographics, and so understanding where your core audience is, a lot of social projects and I would say women or products cater more to women exist on Indiegogo, for example, whereas Kickstarter tends to be for very early technology adopters, so it will be a very specific crowd, very US focused as well. So if your startup is based in Europe and you're trying to get traction around Europe, Indiegogo might be better for you.
Okay. Thank you very much, Alex. It's been a pleasure and a great honor having you.
Thank you for having me.
Enjoy the rest of your time at JAX.
Thank you. Thanks.
Bye.